Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. And if anyone does have any questions watching the recording at a later stage after the live session, you're welcome to email us those questions as well, and we'll pass those along to Hilde.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, my name is Hilde Ervik, and I work at the Institute for Teacher Education, located at campus Karlskinnet at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, and NTNU. And in the recent years, I've worked with the topic sustainable development in the ocean as a teacher for teacher students and a teacher in service, and as a supervisor for master students in science didactics, and a co-supervisor for master students in chemistry. And I also are a research leader in the subject experts in team. So today I should talk about education for sustainable development, how marine plastic litter pollutes nature. Just now I'm also in an international research project. What are teacher education students' knowledge, understanding, and attitudes to marine plastic pollution and its effects on nature environments? Through this study, we want to get a better understanding of teacher education students' knowledge about marine plastic pollution and its impacts on nature environments, and attitudes towards marine plastic pollution, included their expectation and demands on groups and institutions. So with this, we want to embed understanding of the challenges of marine plastic pollution into teaching and learning. And this is one key strategy for overcoming these issues. The results will inform ways to build future teachers' knowledge, understanding, and skills more effectively to combat increasing plastic pollution. So what I'm going to talk about is primarily from the point of view as a supervisor in didactics and as a teacher educator, but I will also present results from our research regarding the impact of marine plastic pollution in the environment. This figure gives students an overview of international agreements and directives that provide guidance for Norwegian strategies and agreements related to marine plastic pollution. In education for sustainability and education for sustainable development, when students work with a theme marine plastic pollution, they reflect over their solutions or actions seen in relation to agreements and directives. And we should take a closer look at some of the items. We start with that one to the left, the International Treaty 2024. At the global conference in Nairobi in 2022, it was decided that an international legally binding agreement on plastic pollution will be adopted before the end of 2024. And the agreement will include work for a circular economy for plastics in order to prioritize the work with the three global environmental crises: climate change, pollution, and loss of biodiversity. And so if we look to the top on the right, IPCC. In the sixth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, IPCC, there are demands of social aspects and services of mitigations. What we know from plastic production seen in relation to climate changes, they affect greenhouse gases to the greatest extent in the life cycle of plastic. And individuals, groups, and institutions can contribute to marine litter mitigations and to climate change mitigations. And these contributions can be changes in individuals' habits and choices of consumptions, groups' values and social movements, and institutions' regulation and political agency. The next one, we can look under EU. The Directive for Plastic Carrier Bags came some years ago, and in the Ministry of Climate and Environment in Norway got an agreement with the Norwegian retailers, and we got the Norwegian Retailers Environment Fund, and they support many projects, and one of the projects is the Rydd Norge Clean Up Norway program, and the brand new one project is the Circular Plastic, started this year, and will go on for 4 years at the NTNU. So this is 2 examples from a project they are supporting. The Rydd Norge Clean Up Norway program, they want to clear 40% of the outer coast and prioritized waterways by the end of 2023. And actors in several countries has been assigned tasks with the cleanup work. One of the actors is Mason Field Station in Rydd, Trøndelag. And here you can see a picture of marine litter collected in 2021. So this was some of the examples from the figure I showed you. The Norwegian Archipelago on the outer coast of central Norway consists of about 6,000 islands of various sizes and is particularly exposed to marine litter that is carried by ocean currents. And the location of the Norwegian Archipelago within the coastal currents serve to accumulate plastic debris. The Institute of Marine Research carried out a simulation of how the archipelago functions as a filter, and it's illustrated here with red and yellow colors for marine litter that is transported by the currents. The coastal renovators employed at the Mason Field Station carry out the year-round cleanup of marine litter. What you can see in the picture is the results of decades of littering of island in the Norwegian Archipelago. In these areas, there are layers upon layers of marine litter down in the soil. And regarding to the mitigation mentioned in the IPCC report, a question in circumstances like what we see on the picture is what is the best way to contribute to marine litter mitigations. The expertise and experience-based knowledge the coast renovators at Mason Field Station have is of great value when students work with the topic sustainability or sustainable development and are research persons during fieldwork. And what you see here are teachers who participated in a further education course, and here they are doing the fieldwork in an area where there have been cleanup work of marine litter. And within an area of 15 by 15 meters, they picked up marine litter that was hidden under the vegetation and covered by soil. And then took all with them back to the field station, and they sorted what they have found in 4 groups. And this was STEM teachers, and they counted very exactly everything and sorted in the first group and counted it to 156 pieces that was raw from the aquaculture industry. They counted 578 pieces, ropes above 50 centimeter, and 3,257 pieces of ropes below 50 centimeter. And the last group they couldn't count. It was very difficult, but they estimated a number, came with suggestions, and the answer was 14,500 pieces, a mix of small and large pieces. And this was in a square of 15 by 15 meters. And when they left from the area, it was still not yet fully cleared. Here we have master students in science didactics. It's the 3 persons you see on the right on the picture. After field work, they planned their research work, which involved carrying out a teaching program with field and lab work with students at 10th grade. And the 2 persons to the left are the coastal renovators. And during a day, that student were together with the coast renovators. They learned a lot from their experience and get answer of many of their questions. So after some weeks, the master students supervised the students from the 10th grade when they were doing field work in an area where there has been cleanup work of marine litter. And within an area of 1.5 by 1.5 meter, the students from the 10th grade picked up marine litter that was hidden under the vegetation and covered by soil. And each group took a soil sample with them back to the field station. And there the student from the 10th grade examined the soil sample, and they found here a part of fishing gear. This is a trawl bag and soft plastic. And furthermore, they took the sample to examine it under the microscope. And here they are looking in the microscope with UV light to look for microplastic. And finally, they dissect some mink and remove the content from the stomach, which later were decomposed and examined for microplastic. The student from the 10th grade got an insight into the impact of plastic on biological diversity, and what they highlighted was the amount of marine litter in the soil, the amount of microplastic in soil, microplastics in the mink's stomach, and they said we must do something to put an end to this. This is a picture from the master students in chemistry. Their research was about environmental pollutants in water, sediment, and marine plastic debris from small lakes and freshwater ponds. So here they have collected their samples, and we're going back to the field station to prepare the samples before the samples was analyzed at the Institute of Chemistry at the NTNU. And the last example from the students' work with the topic sustainable development in the ocean was experts in team. I have one example from their report. One of them was about microplastic from households, which they wrote cause damage on marine life and health consequences for people. And the interdisciplinary report examined the various measures at the individual, groups, and institution level to meet the challenges. And at individual level, they wrote wash less often, wash weaker, use laundry bags, or buy less clothes. And at institution level, have stricter regulation, higher fees, upgrade waste management, introduce filter requirements in washing machines, and increased dissemination of knowledge. I meant knowledge is very important in that work. And the second report was about the deposit scheme for fishing equipment and introduce a deposit of fishing equipment. It's possible if someone takes the cost and involved in introduction and keeping the scheme going. In circular economy, we use products eventually and for as long as possible in a cycle where the least possible researchers are lost. And when plastic products end up as marine litter, the products are not longer in a controlled life cycle of plastic, but get into the plastic's negative cycles, meaning the negative effects the plastics cause on the nature. And the plastic negative cycle contribute to one thing is the aesthetic issues. People use the areas for recreation and to enjoy the beautiful nature. But animals and birds get stuck in the fishing gears. And what you see on the picture to the right, the ram on the picture have had a battle stuck in the troll bag before he ended his days. And animals and birds get feeling of being sated, and they eat plastic debris, and what it seems they like very especially is styrofoam, like you see on the right on the picture. And the marine plastic litter also affect the biodiversity, and the marine plastic debris are sources for environmental pollution. And I've described the last points from our research. Here you can see a map over the area I have shown pictures from, and where we also have done our research. We are now in Trøndelag County in Frøya municipality at Møysund and Froan Archipelago. And we have used Froan Archipelago as a model area. We do not have the total overview of species in Froan Archipelago, which allows us to specify the extent of the threats posed by marine litter. But one of our studies was to take soil samples from the area where there have been cleaned from marine litter. So we took soil samples from the ground from 11 different places. What you see on the picture here is a sample of 27 liter. And we took the sample to the field station. We sorted the soil for itself and the marine litter, and we dried it and weighed it. And here you see after we had digged out one of the samples, and there's still a lot of marine litter here. And we think about the small sample we took out. This is same all over the area. So we talked about when plastic weathering and fragmentation is ongoing. Afterwards, all the marine plastic will be small debris, and afterwards microplastic. And we can see it because of its color. We already see the small pieces here from this is small fragments from ropes in the soil. And the results from our research with soil samples was it ranged from 3.60% to 72.67%, and that was dried weight plastic regarding to the total weight sample. And the average was 25%. And we estimated the number of microplastic particles from 25% dried weight plastic regarding to the total weight sample, and then we get 530 billion microplastic particles. The organisms react differently to exposure of different polymers, concentration, shape, and colors of plastic. Defining what is toxic level of microplastic is depending on characteristics of the organism, the habitat, but also the plastics themselves. And microplastic weathering underneath the vegetation will give some negative impact on the biodiversity. This is a picture of a bottle found when we took the soil samples, and what's special here is that they give us a lot of information, even if we understand it's have been in the nature for a long time. And we can see that this bottle is produced in Brentford in Middlesex in UK, and best before end date, CCAP, is August 89. So this is produced maybe some years before 89 and have been transported, carried with the currents from UK to central Norway. What we see with plastic bottles, they are more intact, even if they are in the nature as marine litter. The soil samples was one project we have done. The second project we are working on is from small lakes and ponds in Norwegian Archipelago. We have taken samples from the water and from the marine plastic litter and from the sediments. And when we look closer up there, we see a lot of plastic debris because of the products have been in the nature for a long time, and because of UV light, frost during the winter, and salty water, it breaks apart. So we know that small freshwater lakes and ponds are small water bodies and are commonplace freshwater habitats and critical for freshwater biodiversity. And in our environmental study, we took samples from 17 small lakes and ponds, and environmental pollutants in water were over limit values, which indicate moderate conditions in water, and toxic elements give bad condition in water. And environmental pollutants in sediment indicate moderate condition. And with moderate condition, we mean that it indicates chronic effect in long-term exposure, and bad condition indicate acute toxic effects by short-time exposure. So occurrence of concern in plastic debris, environmental pollutants in marine plastic debris, where some of them were 4 times more than the values provided for being defined into moderately polluted. Some of them were 500 times more than the average concentration we found in the sediment. And we also have of concern several toxic elements. Of the environmental pollutants we have analyzed, we have the emerging contaminants or pollutants, and this is substances commonly used as plastic additives due to the properties of UV filters, flame retardants, and antioxidants. And emerging pollutants and toxic elements and other environmental pollutants will be released from the marine plastic debris and increase the contamination in water. Marine plastic pollution and climate change are linked issues, and both threaten biological diversity or biodiversity, and seen in context, greater damage is caused to biological diversity as the consequences of marine litter are added to the stress factors caused by climate change. We have more extreme weather and floods associated with climate change. We have more spread of plastic in the nature environment, and both issues occur throughout the marine environment. And ecosystem and species can be particularly vulnerable to both. The ability to adapt to changes in the environment caused by climate change can be affected by the presence of marine litter. We know that climate change causing increased storms, which can disperse mismanaged waste between terrestrial, freshwater, and marine environments. And microplastics increase within seawater and sediments. And terrestrial plastic into aquatic environment is increased by stronger winds, more frequent rain events, and sea level rise may release plastic trapped in coastal sediments. So climate change leads to increased inputs of marine plastic pollution into the environment of marine ecosystem. And with that, I will thank you for the attention.
Thank you so much. It's very interesting to hear about the education programs that you're running there, and then the significant amounts of plastic that you're finding along the way. I don't see any questions that have come through yet in the Q&A box, but just a reminder that you're all welcome to send through any questions or any topics for discussion, either in the Q&A box or in the chat window. I was wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about any of the litter audits that you were doing. I know you showed it looked like a Lucozade bottle, the one that you identified as originating from England and being manufactured before 1989. Were there any other noteworthy findings from the litter that was sorted? Was there a general location that was identified from the litter that was sorted?
I can go back to the picture. What they found, it was much from the fishing industry and aquaculture in that area. And we can remember that this was an area was already cleaned up by the coast renovators. So what was left when these students came there was what they found under the vegetation and in the soil. Mm-hmm. But we have seen a lot of sometimes it's difficult to read where the products come from because this bottle was very special because you can read the etiquette on it, the information. But what is in the fourth group of marine litter is everything from everywhere, I think. But in the where they sorted in aquaculture industry group and ropes and different is most from the fishing industry and aquaculture, but we don't know where it comes from. The experts who work with that can recognize some of the ropes that don't belong to Norway. We know that this is used in another part, in another country. Something have been there for a long time in the environment. We can see, I don't know if you look at the last picture I have of the rope on the rock. It has lost its color, and for a long time in the environment, the color in the rope go into the environment, surrounding environment. So if we find new products, they have the color green, blue, maybe orange. Yeah. But some of the ropes and small pieces we find, they lost their color and fragmented into smaller pieces. What we also find in one of these groups. But many times they find boxes or different products they can read come from Scotland, England, Denmark, but also, of course, from Norway. But most is transported with the currents, like by the coast.
It's very interesting, the number of activities that were run with the students. And I see we do have a question that's come through that says, is there a positive effect on the students' responses after participating in these activities? And how do they respond to the findings?
They are sad, and they are angry, and they are feel a feeling of what can we do about this, and because of that, it's also necessary to tell about what's happening in Norway and international about the directives and agreements who is coming on, because somebody is working to make this better. But we have talked with students afterwards and asked them, have you told them about anybody about this? And they said they have told about it at home, they have spoken about it in the school, and it's a part of changing attitudes, and I will, especially when we have the teacher students with us, we know that they will take the further jobs and meet new students and spread this information further on.
Okay, and in terms of sort of brainstorming solutions and things like that, is that included as part of the lesson? Or are the students sort of required to come up with suggestions for solutions and innovative changes that would prevent this similar pollution in the future? Obviously, this litter has been there for quite a while, as you can see in the degradation and how buried it is by the vegetation.
Also, we have time to it in the subject experts in team. They have many good solutions for what we can do. The two reports I mentioned, they have two suggestions there, but most of all is also change our buy lesser things, don't buy so much plastic products. We don't have the need to produce so much plastic, so it's a different way to look at it. But as individuals, we can buy not so much as before. But also in groups, we can have a change of attitude, and the groups can affect how much plastic products which will be produced in the future time. But also, I think different groups they who work as fishermen and in aquaculture, they are now aware of the problem, and they are doing what they can to reduce not more to come into the environment. But what is most special is everything we already have. It must be gone from the environment because it will pollute the nature, what we already have.
I see. And you mentioned the circular plastics program. I'm not. That's running from this year until 2026. Are there plans to replicate these sort of experiments on that sort of scale for the next few years amongst different school groups and things like that?
The first thing is planned in that project is to let students at NTNU apply for summer jobs at companies who are working with that topic, either reducing pollution from the nature or in companies who are working with the recycling of plastic products, or everything I have to reduce plastic pollution or plastic production. So this for first time this summer, students can apply for summer jobs during this project. And if, for example, the best company I know about, what I used as an example in the presentation at in Central Norway, if a student come there, they can participate in the work they are doing and learn a lot of about plastic pollution, but also how to and they are also have possibility to participate in a project to follow up how much and where from a new plastic which will come with after the cleanup work have been done. So they will do a sort of research work to register what is the influx into the archipelago after islands are cleaned up, because we know every year a lot of marine plastic pollution will come and influx the islands.
Certainly, and as you said, the islands had sort of been cleaned to some extent, but not as thoroughly as sort of beneath the vegetation and all that kind of excavation, all the plastic that remains and breaks down, and often in different cleanups, when things are small enough, they're often missed, and people tend to go for the larger items. So very interesting. I know you spoke about a variety of different sort of projects and the sort of experts in teamwork section, as well as the school-based learning. Can you comment at all about the Norwegian curriculum and to what extent circularity and sustainability and pollution are included in school curriculum in Norway?
Yes, sustainability is topic every students should work with, education for sustainable development, but it depends on not everyone is working with the marine plastic pollution or plastic issues. Life cycle of plastic is depend on many things. But every students should work with sustainable development. So there are many issues that maybe they have about climate change, about vaccination. It can be different topics what the students are working with as a part of sustainable development or sustainability.
Okay. Yeah, it's all incredibly interesting, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of new exciting research coming out of the project as it continues. I see we do just have a comment in the Q&A box saying Tusen takk I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I understand it's thank you in Norwegian, but I'm not too sure about my pronunciation.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay. I don't see any other questions at this stage, but if anyone does have questions after watching the recording or at a later stage after the live session, please feel free to email that through to us at webinars@scafrica.org.za, and we will pass that along. For now, I think as we don't have any other questions at the moment, I think we can close off the session here today. As I see, we're 2 minutes away from our cutoff. Just a reminder that there is another session taking place next week, Wednesday, the 15th of March. Same time at 11:15 in South Africa, and I believe still 10:15 in Norway. I understand that daylight savings changes a little bit later this month, but for now the time remains unchanged. So we're very excited for next week's session as well. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us and presenting today. I understand it's a very different time zone for you at the moment in Australia, but it's wonderful to hear about the work that's happening all amongst the different islands in Norway, and the impact that that's having on different groups. So thank you so much, Hilde.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope to see you again next week, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Again, please feel free to send through any questions if you do have them, and we'll email those along. But for now, we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.